How have we gone this long without discussing the gum wall?
Oh, man, that's right. The
The
gum wall.
That is disgusting to think about now.
Isn't that disgusting?
Oh, it's
so
awesome,
I
though.
only remembered it because I love reading all of the comments from our dear listeners on Instagram. And this morning, I was scrolling through comments and somebody said, when are you guys going to talk about the gum wall and the candy drawer in the kitchen? And I thought, well,
How did they
candy
know
drawer,
about it?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I wrote back and I said, oh my gosh, the gum wall. I forgot about that. Can someone please say what the gum wall was?
Ryder, take it away.
Okay, well, I don't really remember because I don't think I ever used the gum wall. But so there was a wall. Is it behind the kitchen?
I think it's
behind
the stairs
Yep.
down from the kitchen, or in the technically from where Eric and Corey's bedroom is. When they
Upstairs,
come down
right.
those stairs,
Yep.
yeah. So upstairs at that wall, there's listeners, the staircases on sets are they go to literally nothing. They actually go to just another staircase that goes down on the other side.
A rickety wooden staircase that's usually
rickety
thrown
wooden
together.
staircase.
Yeah.
Exactly. Doesn't feel exactly safe back there, but a lot of fun happens back there. A lot of fun happens where you're getting yourself hyped up to go out for your scene. If you're up there with somebody else because somebody else has to come down later, or you're going down the stairs with somebody, a lot of fun conversation happens. And a lot of coming and going came from that staircase. And somewhere along the line, somebody started sticking their gum that they had been chewing, that they weren't going to chew on camera, on the wall there. And it just grew and grew and grew. I definitely used the gum wall.
I did
blob
too.
of disgusting germs.
Much like the bacteria, the wall itself grew and grew and grew.
Well, this is one of those things. Once you have a kid, they start crawling under tables, and Indy started commenting on the fact that no matter what restaurant we're in, we could be in the nicest restaurant, and there's always gum under the tables. It's disgusting. I'm like, who are all these people at a sushi restaurants chewing gum and sticking it under the table, but without fail. And now it's become a joke. Indy checks every restaurant we're in. He's like, Dad, 3 pieces. I'm like, oh my God. He'll go to other tables if they're empty and he'll check under there. He'll count them up in the restaurant. And I'm always so baffled by it, but I guess we were doing the same thing. I don't remember participating. That just sounds disgusting.
You must have. We all participated.
But I definitely remember the candy drawer or the gum drawer. Yeah,
well, wait, now, going to the gum wall, though, that staircase coming down into the kitchen, if memory serves, before we had... Well, yeah, not only that, but wasn't it also before we had the student union in the later episodes where then we would run out and get introed in the student union? Didn't we go down those stairs originally to get introed in the very beginning of the show? The first season or two, it was through the kitchen, wasn't it, to be introed in front of the audience? Okay, that's what I thought.
I think you're right. I think that I think it was.
Remember that.
I think it was through. Yes, I think you're right. That's the way we came down, and then also it was probably during rehearsal too. I know I did not start the gum wall, but I know I contributed a lot to the gum wall because I chewed gum constantly. I was a massive gum chewer. So the candy drawer. Who started that?
I think that was props, wasn't it?
Well, I think the candy drawer was started in response to the fact that our parents asked craft service to take sugar and candy away from craft service.
Did they?
So I think it was in response. Yeah, I think because, they knew it was a set full of kids. And on most TV shows and movies, craft service is 90% crap. It's just it's awful. Red vines,
Pop-Tarts, red vines,
just sugar,
cookies.
just
tons of
sugary,
food and nothing to
things
eat,
and coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think what happened is that the parents on our show gathered together and said, please, can we not have candy and gum and stuff like that on the craft service? And so in response, props provided us, or maybe it was probably for the grown-ups first, a drawer that was a secret just for the cast that we could access our own gum and our own candy. And then it just...
I seem to remember it actually started as a gum/Tic Tac drawer.
Yes,
it was actually
agreed.
more if you need to freshen your breath
In the scene.
This is where you go.
Exactly.
And then it slowly became Also, there's some Reese's Pieces and some Skittles
there's
in here, and then
M&Ms
it just
in there
slowly,
and-
and then it became more and more of a candy drawer. It seems like that would be weird for our parents to ask, because truth be told, our parents didn't really have to deal with us for like a solid 10 hours out of the day. It seems like that would have been something our set teachers may have asked them to take away for us.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who has constantly struggled with their weight, gaining weight on a set is like the easiest thing to do. Yeah. Because you're sitting around all day, waiting for your scene to happen with just tables of junk food everywhere. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh man. And of course, I'm not making the right health food choices at 16 or 17. It's like, oh, they put a case of Coke in my trailer every morning, and it was gone by the time I left. So you 20 Cokes a day.
Like 6 Cokes a day, right?
Oh, it's a lot more than 6. It was a lot more than 6.
So gross.
It was like 12 to 15 Cokes a day. Where that was like my water. Oh, it was awful. Well, I mean, look,
you were just running on caffeine and nicotine.
Oh, I was. I was 16. It was time to grow up. So yeah, it was. But it was true. I mean, this is the worst thing in the world. Was his name Randy? What was our first craft service guy's name? Who was like the bigger guy, nicest guy in the world.
Craig took over in the later seasons. Was his name was he another Steve?
Was it Steve?
He was a big guy. He was a tall guy
with like the mustache. Yes, the mustache. And he was the nicest guy in the world. And he would put like a case of Coke in my trailer every morning. And maybe the whole case wasn't gone, but lots of it was.
Hookup for Coke.
He was. He absolutely was. He was my Coca-Cola. My Coke
Coca-Cola,
connection.
to be clear.
Coca-Cola, for the record. It is Coca-Cola. But it was, yeah. So it was. You could just gain weight. And that's the first talk I had on the set. Was I did one scene where I had to hop over the fence, and Michael pulled me aside and said, "We've noticed that you're starting to put on some weight."
Are you serious?
And it was around the time of the first season. And when was that?
On weight at first season?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This was probably half to 3/4 of the way through the first season. I got my first year. We can tell you're putting on weight. And then I don't know if you noticed, I came back second season. I was like thin because it freaked me out.
Will you know which episode it is when we get to it? When you see yourself hop over the fence, will you remember like, oh, this is the week Michael talked to me?
Yes, I believe I probably will, because you're going to see my larger than life frame trying to get over the tiny little fence.
My gosh, well,
but it was
16?
I was. I know. No, I know.
16, and you were. I mean, the disordered thinking we have around.
I know.
It's crazy, but
I was also eating. I mean, I was like living by myself with my own. It was the first time by myself. I'm not with eating my parents' cooking. I'm like having to make my own decisions, and you're not making the proper decisions when you're 17 years old. You're eating all the crap that you weren't allowed to eat when your parents were regulating the food you had, as well they should have. Whereas like, you're going to have a green vegetable. I was like, I'm never doing that again. So
and to be fair, it's a learning curve. You don't know how your body reacts to things until you try it. You're like, because there are some people, very lucky people, who can eat whatever they want and or they work out a ton, but like
Matt Lawrence.
when you do live at home and somebody else is preparing meals for you and making the decisions about what is even stored in the house, because that for me is what makes craft service so fun, is that it's a kitchen/pantry that I had no control over choosing. So to me, it's almost like grocery shopping. You go, what do you have?
Exactly.
Ooh, what is that? Ooh, you got one of those? Yeah, I'll take one of those.
I never have 9 different cereals to choose from at home. So, yeah, I mean, that was always like, oh, my God, I've never thought of Fruity Pebbles and Honey Nut Cheerios together. What a great 11 a.m. snack. That was always how it was. Like Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and Otter Pops. Of course, that's a great combo. Yeah, it was. And a Coke. Good morning. And a Coke and a cigarette. Good morning. Yeah, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. So, yikes.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Pod's World. I'm Danielle Fishel.
I'm Ryder Strong.
And I'm Will Friedle.
I'm really excited about today's episode because, a couple weeks ago, I guess a few weeks ago, and now at this point, we had Marty York on, and he is very prominent in this episode, which is
great Marty York episode.
Such a great episode. Season 1, episode 9, Class Pre-Union. It originally aired November 26th, 1993. And Yeah, it's Mr. Feeny gives an assignment to the class to predict where their life will be by their 20-year class reunion. And Corey gets a little help from Major League pitcher Jim Abbott.
Like you do.
Exactly. It was directed by David Traynor. And again, it's my breakdown says it was written by Ed Decter, but I feel like it has to have been Decter and Strauss, right?
Yeah.
They wrote together.
Yeah. I think some of the IMDb breakdowns, they'll just take like the first name, but it was
Right.
Decter and Strauss were always a team. It was they were constantly together. Like Laura Runnels and remember later we had the great female, Patty Carr. They always kind of wrote together too. So it was always like that dynamic duo, which was great. Decter and Strauss.
Do either of you have any memories of Jim Abbott from filming this episode?
No.
I remember, he was only there one day. He was probably only there on tape night. So I remember meeting him definitely and thinking he was a super nice guy. But
was it even tape night? There's something that makes me think that it might have been a pre-tape. Like he wasn't even there for tape night. Like they ran him in for an hour or two on a Wednesday, and that was it. Kind of thing.
Pretty long applause. I thought that seemed spontaneous and natural and real.
So did I when I came back as Plays with Squirrels on Girl Meets World, and we didn't do that in front of the audience.
So, okay, this is a good time then for me to tell you the story. I just recently read an article where somebody was interviewing Jim Abbott and they asked him about his guest appearance on Boy Meets World. And he said, and this sounds crazy to me, but there was no reason Jim Abbott would lie, so it has to be true.
Oh no.
But he said he was invited to set and he thought he was coming just to meet the kids. And when he got there, they basically handed him a script and said, just hop in and do this scene. And he was like, what? And he was nervous because he had no acting experience and he wasn't anticipating doing it.
But he's so good.
And he's great, but he agreed. He was like, okay, sure, I'll do it. And he was literally just kind of thrown in.
There was a Jim Abbott poster
intention.
in the bedroom, though. So
there's no way it was that spontaneous, but I wonder if it's a miscommunication between like his reps or like the MLB and him, or they're like, just go and make an appearance. And he doesn't understand what an appearance means because there's like miscommunication.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so he shows, but of course, as far as the producers were concerned, he was guest starring on our show.
Guest starring on the show.
He had a monologue, for God's sakes.
I know. He had so much to do.
Well, not only that, but the whole storyline focuses around the fact that Alan is trying to, otherwise then what happens? Alan hears that story, he makes that face like, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. And then nothing ever comes of it. Like it was very obviously written for the Jim Abbott appearance, but he doesn't, his memory is that he thought he was just coming to say hi. And then he ended up getting thrown in and he was really nervous about it because he said he, was an actor, but he was so good and so natural. So
I still have my ball.
Yeah.
I still have the ball that he signed to me.
Really?
I do. I still have the ball that you can barely see the autograph, but it's there. But I don't know why I'm
surprised, considering you have the invitation to our season 1 wrap party or something.
He still has the invitation to Maitland's wedding. And he still has the invitation to Adler's birthday.
And to Adler's third birthday
you
party.
Got all of that, right, Will?
He keeps.
Yeah, I do. I keep all of my invites in my invite folder right here, which is full of everything I've been invited to. Thank you very much. Can we also, and I know we'll get to it quickly, but can we talk about how the entire episode is about how Corey is such a Phillies fan and such a fanatic and wants to play for the Phillies, so they go and they get a New York Yankee to come and talk to him? I mean, it's obvious that they just needed like a baseball player. So the last scene, he's literally dressed in Laker colors while talking to a Yankee about wanting to be a Philly. It was, I just sat there watching it like, okay, it's like you're a huge Philly fan, but you have a Yankees pitcher on your wall? I think not.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was so funny. But anyway, we'll get to that.
You know what's funny is that I did notice the Laker colors. I don't think they cared about that at all, but I was like, Laker colors.
Lakers
for sure.
But notice none of this. It was like,
color
baseball guy came. The sports ball person showed up, and he gets the most touchdowns in the Nets, right? That guy. He's the best. Was he icy? He got so many goals that year.
So many wickets were scored.
Oh my God.
I did think at the end of the episode when Minkus shows up with the basketball and he goes, I realize I have the wrong ball. I did think, that's Ryder.
That's Ryder.
That's me.
Yeah,
that's so me.
Ryder would have brought Jim Abbott's book to sign out of his giant jean pocket in the back.
Exactly, out of his Jinko jeans pocket.
His Jinko. Can you sign your unauthorized autobiography? Thank you.
It's a first edition.
Exactly. I rewrote the prologue, so I hope you don't mind.
Okay, so I am back in this episode. I am a recurring cast member at this point. We have some guest cast as well. We have Christine Healy as Jane, Marty York as Larry, as I already mentioned, Brittany English Stevens as Stephanie, Morgan's friend. Christopher Kyer did one of the TV voices.
You barely hear in the background. Yep.
Was our dialogue coach on Boy Meets World for this first season, at least. And some of the other voices, Lisa E. Wilcox and Matt Kirkwood. They were...
Matt Kirkwood was one of our stand-ins for all 7 seasons. Right?
And Lisa Wilcox
exactly
was Jeff Sherman's wife.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah, she was a horror actor, and she was Jeff Sherman's wife.
She's in one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, right? She's like number 2.
She's on 2, 4, and 5.
Yep. Yes.
4 and 5.
So Lisa Wilcox came and did a couple things on the show. And yeah, we had Matt Kirkwood, who was there for great stuff. And Chris Kyer, Chris Kyer was a great guy and an awesome dialogue coach. He was mostly there for Lily, I think, at the time. But he was at the time, I don't know if this has changed, but at the time he was the youngest ringmaster in the history of Barnum and Bailey. Wow. He was like 24 years old when he became the ringmaster and went on the road and wrote this incredible book about what life on the train, because there was like a Ringling Brothers train that would go around the country, and it was people ODing and dying, and they wouldn't find them for like days. It's insane story
and back
about
then they
being
were bringing
the
animals
ringmaster
on the train, probably, right?
Yeah. So it was this craziness about him being the ringmaster at like 24 years old. Yeah, it's a really cool story.
Do you think he thought being on the set of Boy Meets World was equally as crazy?
Who knows?
Or do you think it was a nice reprieve?
It's still wrangling animals, so who knows?
And then, of course, as a special guest star, we have Jim Abbott. And so, in case you don't know, listener, who Jim Abbott is, he is like a truly legendary pitcher. He had a very impressive career with the Angels and the Yankees, but most notably, he pitched a no-hitter and was born with just one hand.
One hand.
So
he pitched a no-hitter with one hand.
Yeah,
Amazing.
He pitched a no-hitter with one hand.
Yeah.
He also has 2 hits.
Yeah. Have you ever seen how he does it? In one motion, he throws the ball, and as the ball's leaving his hand, so the glove gets tucked, and he throws the ball, and his hand keeps going, and it's right back into the glove. It's nuts. It's absolutely insane to see his coordination. It's incredible.
I mean, it is a wild amount of talent and perseverance. So I can't. The no-hitter is impossible seeming enough, but the 2 hits, which means he batted one-handed and got 2 hits.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Crazy.
I don't know how that talent exists.
Crazy.
I think it's amazing that he's such a legendary baseball player, and people are like, "But tell us about Boy Meets World." He's like, "Oh,
exactly.
Okay,
no hitter. What was Marty York like?" Yeah. Crazy.
Okay, so let's jump into the recap. In the cold open, we see Corey recording himself on a video camera. Do you guys remember the video cameras of that era? They were just monstrous.
But this was also just kind of such a new idea, right? That like a kid has control of the camera. Isn't it crazy? And I remember we did a couple episodes like this. Later on, we did a whole episode sort of making fun of reality TV where Corey's like filming me getting out of the shower and stuff. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
We did a couple of those. Yeah.
Was this the invention of the vlog?
Yeah,
well,
I
that's
think
what
so.
kind of went through my head was it's like there's a couple times we've kind of hit the future without even realizing it. I mean, it's essentially a kid holding his phone, filming himself.
Right.
Yeah.
But this was a new idea. I mean, I remember my family was one of the first families to have a video camera. My dad got one when we were like 2.5. I mean, it's part of the reason that my brother and I became actors is because we were the only family with a giant video camera. It's one of those, not only did you have the camera that was huge on your shoulder, you had to carry around a VCR in a suitcase, a strap that you wore. And it was like this complicated, crazy, clunky machine. But it was also how we started making movies as kids. So it was definitely the era where this was finally becoming accessible and everybody was filming themselves. I remember this reminded me also of a TV show that I had gotten very close to being on that I don't think it ever even aired, but it was a big TV show that I think NBC was producing maybe a season before Boy Meets World, called News at 12. And the whole thing was that a 12-year-old did their news report for their household. Like every night they would go up to their house or go up to their room and do a news report at a newsroom because they had their own video camera or whatever. So they talked to camera. And it was basically this scene or this structure of this scene as an entire sitcom.
Wow. So funny. Yeah, I remember cameras too. Our family also had one of those huge cameras in the little pack you wore around, and I love watching all those old videos too. So Corey is interviewing his mom, dad, and sister on their way to Stephanie's birthday party, and Corey asks why the baby of the family gets better treatment and a gold necklace, and why does the middle child get ignored? And Alan says it's because he's the baby, because the baby of the family doesn't prank call people in Canada. She gets better treatment, and they all put on coats to enter the cold tundra of Philly in November. Ryder, when you watched this, did you think, okay, I'm apparently the only one who doesn't remember the weather?
I guess it was very much a part of our discussion.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. Because guess what? Didn't care. Just didn't affect me.
Oh, God, it's so funny.
Because I can act in a jacket. I don't know about you, but I'm fine. So.
I am jacket
didn't affect
actor.
You. It's so funny. I watched everyone putting them on, and I thought, yeah, it's November in Philly, and look at how cold it is out there. It all makes sense.
The funny thing about this scene was, to me, because this episode for me, because you kind of watch it through your own eyes when it comes to your character, Eric was such the forgotten man throughout a lot of these episodes. To me, I thought it was so funny that they're talking about how, you're taking one daughter out, and I'm the forgotten kid, and Eric's nowhere to be found. It's like he's not in the family at all.
But it's because you're the oldest brother.
I know. No, I get it. But it was just
understood that you had autonomy.
It was just so because
later
he
didn't get more lines, man. He's like,
no, it's not the lines. It's because later Rusty walks in.
I could have made this scene funnier.
Rusty walks into a scene later with Eric and basically ignores his entire existence. He walks in and just starts talking to Corey. Like, he glances over at me, then just starts talking to Corey. And every time I watch it with Sue, she's like, it's like he doesn't realize he has another kid.
Well, I think this is a good time to tell you that you are not the boy in Boy Meets World.
I know. I understand. I get it. I do.
No, but this is exactly the drive that makes you a great actor, man. You were always like, well, I could do more. What do you need? What do you need? What, want me to chew gum and walk? I can do it all.
At this point, it was like, acknowledge his presence. Like, my God. Acknowledge you have another kid, for God's sakes. Jeez. It's all about that little Lily kid. Lily was really funny in this episode, I thought. Like, I thought Lily was legitimately funny in this episode.
This was a good Lily and Betsy episode. I thought it was really cute. So then Alan warns Corey, no home shopping.
Of course.
Which I thought was funny because I just thought I didn't really ever think of Corey as being like a big home shopping binger, but who knows? Who knows what he was buying? And he says, and don't break my camera. So the family leaves, and Corey, of course, immediately drops the video camera, and Corey assumes he will be grounded. Which
is funny. I'd like to point out they have not, you could tell they're still figuring out Corey's friends, because he says my best friends. When he says, you didn't let me go to the movies with my best friends, and any other episode 5 on would be my best friend. Yeah, or with Shawn. Yeah, so they're still trying to figure out the group. That rung in my ears.
You're right. And then we get our theme song. So we come back from our circus theme song, and we're in Mr. Feeny's classroom. Feeny is teaching a lesson on taxation without representation, and Corey is dressed as George Washington, and Minkus is playing King George wearing a crown. And Topanga's back.
Finally.
Very excited. I'm wearing the same dress I wore for the lipstick scene.
Yeah.
So now in the couple episodes we've seen me, I've only worn 2 dresses, a white lace dress and a purple lace dress.
Is this probably your second episode then?
I think this, I think this is only my second episode. Wow.
That's amazing. It's nuts to think about that.
I think the order probably went Corey's Alternative Friends, then this episode, and then we filmed the Halloween episode, and they aired it.
Oh, maybe.
Because Marty said his last episode was the Halloween episode when he said he messed up his line.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Oh, you're right.
Oh, jeez.
So this would have been before that.
Yeah, and so Marty York is also in this. He's not yet feeling the effects of the death chair. It hasn't happened to him yet. Oh. And Feeny explains that if you don't understand history, you are doomed to repeat its mistakes. Corey wonders if every boring person in history is named George. And he gets a bad look from Mr. Feeny.
And for the first time, for some interesting reason, the George Feeny placard on the front of his desk is cocked perfectly towards camera. It's not facing the front. It's not facing the front of the classroom. It is now facing just slightly out, so we can see the giant George.
Just in case you forgot his name was George, here's a reminder. I know, it is funny, those little things you recognize. Either I always wonder if actors just notice them, or like people who work in entertainment just notice that stuff, or if fans watching also go, that's strategically placed on an angle. Because by the way, it could have not been so angled and you could still perfectly read George Feeny.
Yeah.
But it is really angled right toward camera. Corey says he's not interested in the past. He's only interested in his future. And that's because he's 11 years old and that's really what's in front of him. So Feeny gives them an assignment, which, of course, Feeny is prepared. It's almost as if he knew it was going to go this way.
That's my question for you. It seemed like he was like, well, I'm just waiting for a student to bring this up so I can have this assignment that I've had planned all day.
Yeah. I mean, don't they later in the episode make a reference to having done this assignment before, too? So
that's what I mean. This is
something that he does.
So do you think it was poorly written that it made it sound like George is coming up with this on the fly? Or do you think that is a George Feeny-ism where it comes up on the fly? It seems to come up on the fly, but it's actually been perfectly planned.
I'd like to think it's a George Feeny-ism.
Okay.
Me too.
I like to
think
embrace the fiction of the show.
Good. I like it. I have no problem with that.
He's just that omniscient.
Gotcha.
He can plan it all.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love
and
it.
he's that quick and clever that he knows exactly what he wants them to do and how it ties in. So their assignment is to think about their futures so that they can avoid the mistakes that they might make before they happen. He wants them to figure out what they will be in 20 years when they go to their class reunion in the year 2000. Minkus coins it a pre-union. Now, I'd like to point out, in a completely unrelated note, my mother was adamant that the entire first season we braided my hair. It is so obvious in this episode. It was done by a crimping iron.
It was pretty crimpy. Even I noticed it was pretty crimpy.
It was done by a crimping iron in this episode. The first two, so this is my third appearance on the show. This isn't my second episode. This is the third episode I've been in that we've seen so far. And this one, you can see where the crimping like where the iron starts in the hair, and at the roots, it's still straight. And so I texted my mom and I said, Mom, I went on the air and I said for the whole first season, you braided my hair. And she said, I think those two episodes I had to braid your hair just took so long it felt like a whole season. She said, but you're right. I'm watching the episode too, and it's definitely a crimping iron. And then I have a picture of me and you, Ryder, and Lee Norris, and my hair is in curlers. And so because Lee is there, I know it's first season, which means eventually in this same first season, we eventually get to the big Topanga curls. So the hair evolution just in season 1 was braids, crimping iron, curlers.
I don't know why I remember this, but I think it's big, curly, like the big Topanga hair when you do that great scene with Ben when you're playing basketball with the socks.
Yes, you're right. That may be the first time.
There. Like, I don't know why, but it is.
You're correct.
Yeah. That's
and that may be the first
episode
time
of the season.
Is it?
Is it? Is it really?
Yeah, I think that's
you know what?
Boy Meets Girl. That's the last episode.
It's also big curly hair in the episode where I have a crush on you.
Is it? Okay.
Yes. It's also big curly hair there. So I don't know. We'll see. There's about to be another hair evolution that coming up but I just wanted to let everyone know.
Hair
again,
evolution.
The memory on me, not so good. But when I notice that I'm wrong about something, I will point it out. This was a crimping iron. Minkus tells the class that he believes he's going to marry Topanga. She says she's flattered, but she doesn't know if she recognizes the institution of marriage. And Minkus says he's seen the future, and it's me. So this
funny.
is the
I did
first-
not remember this whole Topanga Minkus.
Oh, I did. Even
thing.
yeah.
You did?
That
I
was-
completely
yeah,
forgot
this
it.
was
But the
like
second I saw it, I
thing.
was like, well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, Minkus would be in love with Topanga. She's smart. You know, she's a good student like he is. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
She's different. I mean,
Yeah.
it was that whole kind. I also love, Danielle, how not only you but Topanga was completely unfazed by Lee saying, you know, we're supposed to be together in the future. It wasn't like you could, the easy sitcom thing is like, ew, we're not going to happen, nerd. I mean, something, no matter what it is.
Right.
And this was just like, you kind of considered it a little bit. And then it was like, well, you know, it was just a completely different character than you're normally seeing.
Well,
for
it
a
was
12-year-old girl.
sincere flattery. She was
Yeah.
flattered. She really meant it. She was very flattered that
Yeah.
he would consider her as a potential life mate. But the biggest problem is, I don't know if I believe in the concept at all. And
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with you. It's just the concept that she's not sure she believes in.
It's a great character.
It's a really
Topanga
clever
is a
way to
great
keep
character.
the same tension of like a character being rejected, right? But
Yeah.
not make it the obvious, easy, simple, I don't like you. It was like more
Right.
complicated and layered than that, which is really
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, it was great.
I know, I loved it, and I did remember that Minkus has a crush on Topanga, and that Topanga is, you know, kind of neutral on the subject. But it's interesting because when we think about Lee not coming back for season 2, it's another thing they missed. Like they very easily could have
Totally.
had Minkus stuck around. There could have always been some of that tension, and yet we lost it with. I mean, we lost so many great things when Lee didn't come back for season 2, but that was one of them. Is that was like a whole tension that just ended up being lost.
Since we're talking about that,
Could have been a
just
love
very
triangle.
Quickly, it
Could have, yeah. Which who doesn't want to see more of those?
Of course. Since we are talking about Lee very quickly, David Kendall, one of our awesome producers, he and I were texting back and forth, and apparently because we addressed this on the show that Lee was in on the episode of why Lee didn't come back, he said he was actually in the room when the decision was made, and it was exactly what Lee heard. They wanted to age up the show, and it was a note from ABC. So
Yeah.
he said that was exactly what it had. So the whole Urkel thing, he's like, I never heard any of that. I never heard anything about Jaleel White. He's like, the story that Lee told is the story that is what happened while we were in the room. So
Right.
Lee had the story right.
Right, and we did talk about it too. That like at some point we jump up to like grade 8, we skip over grade 7, and it did happen that they wanted
Yeah.
to age us up. So,
Yeah.
well, there you go. We know the truth. They wanted to age us up, and that's why Lee didn't come back. But we sure did miss him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So we are then in the cafeteria. Corey calls Shawn's future as a tire salesman, which is his dad's job, boring. Writer, what do you remember about this whole storyline for you and what you were going to be for your future?
I just remember having fun, you know, being able to wear a fat suit. And yeah,
Was that a
like,
suit?
this
Was
a
that like
fun
the whole
episode.
thing? Did they just stuff it with like pillows, or was
It
there
looked just like a
thing?
pillow.
Yeah. I think it's just a pillow. I don't know, but I just remember thinking it was funny and fun. Yeah. No, I mean, this was a good episode for me, and you know, I had stuff to do and jokes to say, and I remember being very comfortable.
Yeah,
This was definitely post Alternative Friends, so I felt like I belonged finally.
Yeah.
You know, I seemed comfortable in my own skin in a way that other episodes I was not.
Yeah, you do seem very comfortable and very sure of yourself, and in the nicest way possible, understated. Like just
Yeah.
you're perfectly understated. You feel
Yeah.
very real,
Relaxed and
yeah,
real.
relaxed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're in the cafeteria now, right?
Yep.
So there's a couple things I noticed about this scene that were very funny to me.
Please tell me one of them is Oritos.
That was one,
Okay.
which is great. The
Larry
Oreos
has a bag of Doritos, that are
Doritos.
down,
that
yeah.
the D is crossed off, and it's just Oritos.
I love that Ben, and you can tell it's completely natural and he doesn't realize he's doing it, but it's such an 11 or 12-year-old thing to do. And he stops himself at one point. Under the table is swinging his legs back and forth like you do as a kid. Like you're sitting there and you swing your legs, and you could tell he doesn't even realize he's doing it. And then he goes, oh, geez, and he stops swinging his legs. I thought that was great. And then for some reason, it's the only school that offers real salt and pepper shakers on the table. Which I thought was hysterical. You're never going to give little kids giant real salt and pepper shakers as if they're at a luxury restaurant. They always had these
Wow,
tiny
your
little
attention
ripped
to
packages.
detail, man. This
I
is
know.
intense.
I didn't even know that.
I noticed that. And then the extra that walks by, who there obviously is supposed to be another teacher, is 137 years old. Did you see the woman who walks by in the background?
No.
It's oh man, she makes Bill look like he's 40.
Oh my god.
So it's one of those things where it's just like, I wonder why they decide. It's like, well, we need someone who looks like a teacher. And it's like, okay, but does she have to be 90? Like,
you know what I remember about these cafeteria scenes more than anything is the taste of that juice. That like
the orangey, reddy,
red stuff. Like that was because I had to drink it every scene in this, and it was always like a Kool-Aid that they mixed and then refilled, so they weren't like wasting packaging. So every scene they'd come in and like refill that thing, and the flavor. I've never liked Kool-Aid or any of those sort of drinks.
It's so sugary. It's just sugar. I mean, it's just sugar.
Yeah, I can smell it. I don't remember the taste as much, but I can remember the smell, and it would stain the color of your skin. Like you drink the juice, and above your lip, it would be like pink stained if somebody didn't get it off of you pretty quickly.
Was it green beans pretty much every time you sat down?
It was.
I guess so. Every time, right?
For some reason, I remember Jell-O, but I didn't see Jell-O, so I remember eating Jell-O a lot and drinking that weird thing. But maybe I just made that up. I don't know.
No, I think there was Jell-O. Not this episode, but there was Jell-O. But green beans, Jell-O. Yes. I feel like green beans all the time. So Larry says he's going to be Feeny when he grows up, and then he has one of the most famous Marty York lines, which is imitation is the sincerest form of butt kissing. It's a very big shine for Marty York in this scene, eating his Oreos. And Corey says he's the only one of them with vision, and he's going to be the center fielder for the Philadelphia Phillies, and Shawn and Larry laugh at him because he's not even good in Little League. Corey says they need to be men with good jobs, and then Larry and Shawn agree, and then they bark like men, a.k.a. Tim Allen.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's a complete Home Improvement ripoff.
It is, totally.
Yeah. But we've talked about how there were references, there were allusions to the sort of Home Improvement, but it was clearly the number one show in the country. So, doing this was sort of like a Beavis and Butthead reference. It was something familiar that the audience would be like, oh, yeah. It was definitely just the vibe, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it also became a thing that you did it never happened again. So that was the thing I always loved. It's like, they tried something else.
But that came from Tim Allen's stand-up, right? I mean, he used to actually, it was like his catchphrase, essentially, even before the show. So then, right. So,
like that kind of, that kind of thing. Yeah, it was nuts.
That sounded like, oh, never mind. Moving on. Okay. So
a dying dog?
Yes, it sounded a little bit like a dying dog, but also it sounded like Arsenio Hall, like ooh, ooh, ooh. Which
that's the dog pound. Well, that's the dog pound, so it's the same kind of thing.
Okay. But what did Tim Allen do? Wait, can you do what Tim Allen actually?
He does he goes like he does like that kind of barking thing.
That doesn't sound
seal
right to
doggy
me.
kind of thing.
I thought what he did was a thing that it was like confused man, where he was like, oh.
Well, he does that too, but he does this when as a man, when he would like fix something or do something, he'd go like that's what they're doing. They're barking at the thing. So go watch his stand up. He does this kind of like, I fixed the thing, like that kind of barky thing. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well.
Google. It's worth a Google.
Okay. You're right. I'm going to spend the next hour just Googling Tim Allen's stand-up.
You have to spend an hour Googling, you're Googling wrong, my friend.
No, I'm an hour watching stand-up.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, so then we are in the living room. Corey is doing his school project with his mom and making a baseball card. She says that she will be 44 years old at his 20-year high school reunion, which obviously makes no sense. She's lying about her age. Morgan enters with a rainbow-colored plastic bead necklace and explains that she traded her mom's gold necklace for that one. And Amy is obviously super concerned and she wants to get it back. But Morgan says, nope, she said black, no trades back. So,
has anybody ever heard that before?
Never heard that before.
Never heard that before either.
I think they just made it up. I think it's just a thing like kids would do,
Did they? Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Can you also tell me why Amy is just cutting up random small pieces of paper?
I did wonder what kind
businessman. You got to have business.
I know, but at least make your business
keep your hands busy as an actor,
or cut something. She's just taking small pieces of paper and cutting them into smaller pieces of paper. It was the greatest thing.
I did notice
all
that
you
too.
need to do to be a sitcom parent, just fold laundry, put things away.
But that's at least the thing. That's at least the thing. Yeah, cut paper into smaller paper. That's what I'm gonna do.
Maybe she was making confetti. Maybe so that he could,
I'll buy that.
he could throw confetti.
I was curious.
So Mrs. Matthews, Amy, calls Stephanie's mom, and she hears black, no trades back. So even the mom is in on this and doesn't want to give back her gold necklace. And so then we're back in the classroom, and we're at the mock reunion. And Minkus, in an absolutely adorable suit, tells Feeny that he grew up to buy out Microsoft, and he married Topanga. They just had their third child named Rainbow Einstein Minkus.
Great joke.
Great joke.
I think that's so cute. A combination of their two personalities. Corey tells Shawn he can't believe he showed up as a tire salesman.
Well, hold on, Danielle. When Lee came back for Girl Meets World, was there any reference to him having a crush on Topanga?
Yes.
Or there was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
That's great.
He actually, the first time you see Lee, when he walked into the classroom, because Topanga was there visiting Riley and was talking about being a lawyer, and the door, flew open, and Lee was standing in the doorway, and he went, Topanga. Which is a callback to an episode we haven't done yet. We haven't seen where that kind of started. So we'll see how that, like, where that originally started. But it was, yes, there was a little bit of the playing off of, like, I think Stuart Minkus makes a little bit of a joke about, well, you made a mistake not marrying me, but it's all in good fun with Corey and whatever. So,
and who played his wife on Girl Meets World? Somebody famous played his wife on Girl Meets World, right?
So it was Kristana Loken who played Minkus's wife. And I remember because I came and visited. Actually, Willie Garson was directing an episode of Girl Meets World, and she was in it. And we reconnected because I hadn't seen her since she was in the episode where, like, Corey and Shawn are cheating on her because Corey's dating her. And so that's like where we have the phone call where we're like listening to each other and like we have to meet up in the library. It was a very famous, funny episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she ends up with
I
Minkus.
can't wait till we get to that too, because that's one of those episodes that feels like it's in the forgotten, like the totally forgotten years for me, where we will watch episodes. I'll be like, wow, this is.
Well, it was because Corey and Topanga broke up, for a couple episodes here and there, and that was one of those episodes where you might have been in it, but you probably had a small part because you were, you and Corey were broken up, and that was kind of the point.
Right?
Yeah.
So funny. So yeah. All right. Well, there you go.
There we go.
I can't wait till we get to, we have you guys, we're going to be doing this podcast for like, what, 52 years?
I thought about that the other night. I was like, all right, so we've been doing this for several months. We are now on episode, oh man, we're going to be here forever.
Well, by the way, you're also wrong in saying we've been doing this for several months. We've been doing it for like 7 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Yikes. Yes, we are.
But it's been so fun.
It's been a blast. Really, and now we're going to cut optical flip to 6 years from now. Well, it's going to be, I am purposely not listening to any of the episodes of the podcast so we can do another podcast where we listen to the podcast for the first time ever.
We can do a re-listen?
A re-listen of the rewatch?
Re-listen. It's like, Will's never even heard any of these, so we've got to do a re-listen of the rewatch. It's going to be great.
I love that Will admits that he doesn't listen to any of the podcasts because I painstakingly listen to every single second, multiple times, trying to make tiny little cuts here and there to make it,
I do listen. Not to all of them, but mostishly.
I love you, Will, but I don't believe you listen to them.
No, I do. I actually listened. Sue and I listened to one last night. It was great. It was the Ladies of the Office, but it was a great podcast. I was super excited. So it was great.
And you sounded great.
You're amazing. That 90210 OMG is great. So, yeah.
Okay, so Corey tells Shawn he cannot believe he showed up as a tire salesman, and he shows up with a pillow in his uniform. By the way, your little salesman onesie thing is so cute. I want it now.
Jumpsuit?
I want to wear it now. Yes, the jumpsuit. It's so great. It looked soft and cozy and worn in, and I absolutely love it. And I did. I was going to ask you if that was a real fat suit or if it was just a pillow, but you don't really quite remember.
Just a pillow. No, I don't. I just remember saying a line like, "Oh, my dad's fat, my uncle's fat. I'm going to be fat." That was like my big joke. But that's so funny you say that about the jumpsuit because the jumpsuit has become like the LA mom uniform. Like every mom.
Really? Like that kind of look? Really?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's the hottest look in LA right now.
They're
like for the last like 5 years. It was maybe even longer. Like I remember when Indy started going to school, it was like all the moms would be showing up in those like old school jumpsuits because they're super comfortable. But yeah, it's become the look. So it's funny that you picked up on that, Danielle. And now you got to get one. You got to get one.
I know.
They're big.
I mean, I would be lying if I said I don't have one. I do have one. The funny thing about the moms loving jumpsuits is that jumpsuits are actually the most impractical. They make absolutely no sense. Every time you need to go to the bathroom, you have to take off all your clothes like a kindergartner.
But you have pockets,
it makes no sense. Yeah, well, true. But I mean, now, thankfully, women's clothes are starting to be made with pockets, which is great. Like even dresses have pockets, which is the best. If I find a dress with pockets, I'm buying it for
Sue
sure.
does the same thing. Sue says exactly the same thing.
It's the best. Yeah. By the way, I don't even use them. I don't want to put anything in them except my hands, but I like having like a dress with pockets that I can put my hands in. I mean, occasionally if I'm going for a walk or I'm going somewhere, I just want a chapstick and a credit card or something in my pocket, I will use them. But for the most part, I just want to put my hands in my pockets. And so then Topanga shows up and she is wearing a toga and she is now 20 years later, she is the president of the United States. Don't you have to be 35 to be a president?
Yes.
So why didn't Feeny say to her, sorry, but this doesn't make any sense. You're only 32 in 20 years. You can't be president. It good really catch. Bugged me.
That is a good guy. I didn't think about that at all.
I thought
especially
about
since he nitpicks Corey so aggressively.
That's my point, is that he nitpicks Corey for not thinking through his plan.
He gives Topanga a pass.
Yep.
And Topanga gets, coasts right through as being president when really he should say like, no, you would be maybe, you're on your way there. You're a senator. You're whatever.
Yeah. Not a single follow-up question really Feeny destroys Corey, but Topanga's like, yeah, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. And he says, wow, well, he does say it's ambitious that that's ambitious of you. And she says, well, not many people want the job anymore. Now that I've disbanded the military and and eliminated nuclear weapons, the position is not as seductive. And it's funny that this is the episode with Jim Abbott because I wasn't there when Jim Abbott was there. I don't remember the Jim Abbott storyline at all because it wasn't my storyline. But I remember this toga wearing Topanga speech so vividly because it was so over my head at the time. Like I had no, I was 12. I had no adult understanding of politics or none of it. So to me, it just felt like a bunch of words that someone told me to say. Just babble about what my vision was for 20 years from now. And yet in the last decade, it has been sent to me via social media. It kind of goes viral every year when like a new group of people discovers that Topanga said this and it lands and people are like, man, this is awesome. And so I have got to relive this moment, many times over the last several years. And it is something that was it stuck out to me as being so much fun to do, even though it really didn't make much sense to me at the time.
You know what I remember about this? I remember when you said the line about breeding stock, but put on the ground for breeding stock. There was such a visceral reaction from the audience. Like the audience loved that. It was like a clapping, cheering kind of moment.
Yeah, and when she says that men are kept underground for breeding.
Yeah. And I as I was watching the episode, I remember just last night, I'm like, that's the scene where you were amazing in the first episode in Corey's Alternative Friends, but you weren't yet part of, like, they didn't know what they were going to do with you and blah, blah, blah. And I remember watching last night going, if they had a moment of, I wonder if we should have Topanga join the cast, that disappeared with this scene, in my opinion, because it was such a unique character that then you were hitting the jokes. You were different than anybody else on the show. And then to get that reaction from the audience, I thought that was the moment where if I'm Michael or one of the producers and I was on the fence, I would have been like, no, she's got to join us permanently. Right. It did. That's how it hit me. It was like, it was perfect.
It's a character, it's a voice of female empowerment too, right? Like on a show that has jokes like men grunt, 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 grunt. So it's nice it's nice to offer the alternative. And it was a great balance for the whole show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Especially again, opposite Corey, the very stereotypical boy.
Yeah.
It was, I feel very lucky that I got to play the character. Like especially when I see these moments, I think, man, that's so cool. What a cool character for anyone to get to play. And then I'm like, and I got to do it. I feel really lucky when I see those.
When you're talking about sitcom, characters, I don't even want to say like Topanga, but characters that they try to make completely different and unique are 99% of the time really annoying. Like they try to do something that's so different and you're like, wow, that character's just annoying as hell. And Topanga was never that. It was never that kind of like, I don't want to, okay, can we please cut away from this? This is just brutal at this point. It wasn't that at all, which is, I think, kind of not only a testament to you, but how she was written. Because, man, that easily could have been the wacky, quirky girl who it's like, that's annoying.
Well, a big part of it is that she's so confident. We talked about this with Minkus a little bit too, but I think the character of Topanga being so unfazed by Corey's criticism of her and everybody else sort of being like, you're weird. And she never feels the need to defend it. She never feels the need to convince anybody else that they should think like her. She just presents and she's confident and she's tough and strong. And it's wonderful. It's not a quirky character trying to change everybody else. No. It's just a quirky, it's just a different character being different and very comfortable in her own skin.
It's also Danielle, and you have to tell me, Danielle, if you did this as an acting choice, if somebody gave you this note or how it came up, but it was whether it was an insult, whether it was I'm going to marry you in the future, no matter what was said to Topanga, she takes a moment and considers it. Right. Every single time, no matter what it is, it's like, well, it's because you're weird. And she'd like take a moment and go like, well, am I? Like there's always that beat, which made it so unique.
That's actually, it's funny you say that because that's what I was going to say to Ryder's point about Topanga. The thing I love most about her is that everything is a discussion to her. She doesn't actually feel absolutist about anything. She feels like, when Corey says you're not going to shave your legs, she goes, I haven't decided yet. Yeah. Everything is she's measured and she thinks about things and nothing is right and nothing is wrong. It's all just a matter of what will I decide. And it's the same thing when in this episode, Minkus says he's going to marry her. And she says, wow, that's incredibly flattering, but I haven't quite decided that I recognize marriage. Everything to her is on the table. Nothing's off the table. And I love that about her. I love that there is no insulting her because that's just a perspective. And that perspective deserves the same amount of weight as this perspective. And let's discuss. And I find that find that endlessly endearing about her.
It adds a layer to, you think of the consideration she had to go through before deciding all men needed to be put underground for breeding. which is she considered
some
it. Like I'm gonna think about research. Nope. This is the best thing to happen.
And this episode is about history. So she probably looked over history and decided that nuclear weapons, men have always been in charge. What do? We can't completely get rid of them. We have to, but we can remove them from judgment making. Yeah, I love it.
That's great.
It's very well done. So then Larry does come to the reunion dressed exactly like Mr. Feeny, and Mr. Feeny calls him over and calls him a poseur. And again, a little bit of Marty York shine. He says he's going to, Feeny asks him, well, what's curriculum? And he says, I can look it up. He says, what's tenure? I can look it up. And he actually does feel like, this was an episode where if another friend was going to stick around, this was the episode where we would have seen it fully work.
Right.
Corey also did a lot of work on his project. Yeah. I'd like to point that out, that he actually legitimately did a lot of work on his project.
Yes, when Corey comes up to the front and he says to Feeny, okay, are you ready for me? He's all excited. And he says that he's a legendary baseball player and he has a cereal box with his face on it. He also says he dropped out of high school in 11th grade because he got a $6 million per year contract. And Feeny says Corey didn't think his assignment through, though, because since it's not as financially stable as he thinks, he gives Corey an incomplete, which is an I, even lower than an F. I like that you said that's down there.
Down there by M.
By M. That's a good joke. I actually wrote that down. I was like, that's a good joke.
That is a good joke. I mean, I do think Corey did a lot of work on this, on his presentation. But I also really like and appreciate Feeny's argument here, because it is true that money, when given a ton of money, is certainly when you're young. If you don't know, we've seen it with endless celebrities and famous people. If you don't know how to handle money, if you don't know what to do with money because nobody ever taught you how to use money. And by the way, our school system doesn't focus enough on how, like, I graduated high school without anybody in school teaching me
how
really
to balance
what I
balance your
or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
You go through all of that, and it's just kind of like, I guess everyone just assumes your parents are going to teach you that. But what if your parents don't know how to do that?
I mean, I think for the baby boomers, there was like a home economics course that everybody had to take. But for whatever reason, that's just been dropped from the American curriculum.
Well, no, home economics at the time, home economics then and when I took, because I took home ec too, home ec was sewing and cooking. That's what home ec was. Absolutely. Okay. We learned how to sew when we learned how to cook. That was our home economics. The idea of like balancing your books and, well, wait, let's figure out what our budget is for the month and let's figure out how much we're making as opposed to how much is going out. None of that was ever addressed anywhere.
But
which
you
is
did
so
take
strange.
home ec, huh? That's
Absolutely,
so funny.
for years.
Back in Connecticut. And you guys had electricity.
We did.
It's
you know what, Ryder? You know what, Ryder? Seriously, if Trina didn't come up with the idea for this podcast, we would never have had the opportunity for you to make fun of me for this stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we had to learn to sew and cook on the prairie.
Right, of course. After you made your own butter.
After we churned to butter.
You took the horse and buggy.
We took the horse and buggy.
The bank.
We churned to butter, and then we went to our to take the bank out, and that's the way it was. That's how we did it in Connecticut, sir. My
God.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, fellow nutmeggers.
Oh my God.
So funny.
We are back in Corey's room.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm stopping right there. I purposely have not said anything because I was waiting for one of you to bring it up. Is nobody going to mention the 12-year-old girl in the classroom who obviously wanted to be the showgirl? Who's in the background dressed in an entire full pink showgirl outfit?
I didn't notice at all.
No one is going to mention this but me? Really?
I didn't notice
it. Full Vegas showgirl's outfit with the head plume and
my
the
dream is burlesque.
Literally.
This is what I'll be in 20 years. I'm going to make bank, Feeny.
I am watching with my wife, and Sue's going, what the hell is that? What the hell? Like, she wants to be a burlesque dancer? What is
That's
it?
Hysterical.
They're in a hot
I didn't notice
pink
at all.
and I was like, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I know one of them's going to bring it up. Somebody's going to bring it up. They have to bring it up. A full burlesque dancer outfit is in the classroom.
Amazing.
Do you think the choice for that was just because they wanted like a bright, pretty
just
outfit?
costumes.
It's just
It was just
costumes
like-
in the back?
I wonder if they just, because I believe background actors have to provide their own wardrobe. So I wouldn't be surprised if they said, bring a Halloween costume or bring a costume that could be a job, and they just sort of,
maybe because there's one extra. She's dressed like a doctor. One of them, there's Marty dressed like, and then you're all milling in the background, including Ben. Like, this is one of the few scenes where Mr. Feeny takes time with other students.
Yeah.
It's one of the few times. So he takes time with Marty. He takes time with Topanga, which again, it's only like her second or third episode. So it's not like she's a regular on the show yet. And then Corey comes up, and in the background, you're all there kind of milling in this group. And in the group, it looks like the Village People are behind you. It's like there's a cop, there's the burlesque dancer, there's, the doctor.
And we should talk about the fact that you can't talk, obviously. So we have to sit there mouthing to each other, fake dialogue. Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I just had to bring that up. I can't believe nobody mentioned that.
That's very funny. I did not notice. I want to go back and watch it again now.
Yeah. That's all you'll see now that when you watch this, by the way. That's
so funny. By the way, Ryder, I know that typically background actors have to bring their own wardrobe, but I think when they require them to have something like this, like something kind of over the top, those are provided. Like, I doubt that showgirl costume was hers. I bet it was something they just picked somebody and put.
They just went to the Halloween store and bought 10 outfits. They're like, it'll work. Who cares?
Yeah, it'll work. Exactly.
Throw this on. Throw it on them.
12-year-olds. Do we need sexy nurse outfit? Like, come on. It's just weird.
It's Catwoman in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you want to be? Anyway.
So we're in Corey's room, and Corey takes down his Jim Abbott poster. Eric says his future is a sports car, and there's going to be cheerleaders in it. But Corey buzzkills him with his economic facts and calls him a poseur. And is this the scene where then Alan walks in and, Will, you felt forgotten?
Forgotten? It's like he walks in, the only thing he doesn't do is spit in my face and walk by. It's amazing.
Before we get to that, can we talk about Will's pose?
Oh, yeah.
Because I think this is one of those moments where it's probably after we already did the episode where you threw the bag and made the sound. Where you went,
and that kind of laugh.
You ended up making a very similar sound. I was like, that's where, it said in the script, he strikes a pose, and you added the, which
probably
makes the joke, because otherwise it's just a weird pose, but you like punctuate it with that sound. It's like a great Will Friedle acting moment where it's just like, oh, this makes that funny, because otherwise it's like, it's okay. But
well, it's also in a way making fun of my oldest brother, Gary, who was an amateur bodybuilder and would actually go in those little Speedos be on stage making those poses like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So yes, crazy. I also thought, and then when I watched it again, I thought I was wrong. But lying on the bed the way I was lying on the bed and reading the magazine is exactly the same place and pose and what I'm doing in the opening title credits. So I was like, ooh, did we do the same thing? But it's a different shirt. So I was like, okay. I thought maybe they had pulled it from that, or we did it on the same day, but it obviously wasn't. But it's like, oh, let's put him on the bed and do that stuff. And then again, the Phillies fan, the diehard Phillies fan, having a Yankee poster on his wall, not a chance.
No. But
again,
he loved Jim Abbott. He was just my husband actually is very much he's a diehard Clippers fan, NBA. He loves the NBA, but he loves lots of teams because he likes individual players or he likes the story.
I like Tom Brady. I hate to say that, I was a Patriots fan, so I'm a Brady fan. So I get that, but it was obviously who. And I'm curious. This is what I'd like to know about with the writers. Was this written for Jim Abbott? Like when they were pitching the story, was it like, and we're going to get Jim Abbott because of everything he went through and the perseverance that he had, or was it like, we're going to get a baseball player, let's see who we can get?
I bet it was written for Jim Abbott.
I think so too. I'm hoping.
I think they knew he was inspirational, motivational. He was obviously, extremely hot at the time, and they knew his history. He had, college, and I think it perfectly worked out.
I think so too.
Plus, I think a lot of our writers were from New York, right? Or from the New York area. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were Yankees fans.
Sure.
In our
I think Michael
staff.
was a Yankees fan. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
So Corey is being a big bummer. Alan enters and says, are you guys ready for dinner? And he does say, hey, guys, are you ready for dinner? And Will says, no, but I'll do anything to get away from this bummer.
Captain Bummerface or whatever I say. Yeah.
Captain Bummer. And you walk out. And then Alan and Corey have a dream. I don't know what I saw a dream written down here. It's a dream.
Weird things just out of nowhere.
We enter a dream sequence. They're dancing on the moon, upside down.
It was just so weird. Alan and Corey have a recycle bin.
I think we should just do an episode where Danielle just starts recapping complete nonsense, and we just have to play along. We should do an improv where you're just and then the penguin walks in and starts talking, and Will and I just have to go with it.
What do you guys remember about the penguins?
Why do you think Amy...
Horrible. Just trash the dressing room. You could not get this penguin.
Exactly.
A real drinking problem, that penguin.
Was she right? Do you think they wrote it for the giraffe or whatever it was? But it's really weird.
Well, I'll never get the smell of sardines out of my nose.
Oh, this would be great. Oh, I love it.
That would actually be a great improv podcast where it's just people recapping a show that never existed, and we have to go along with it.
It's pretty great.
And we just have to keep telling memories for a show that never existed.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, if there's one thing doing this podcast has made me realize is that I want to do so many more podcasts. I want to just keep doing them. I want to do... Writer, if you want to start that improv podcast,
let's do it. Improv podcast.
I just, you know what? I have too much time on my hands.
So much time, man. There's nothing I want to be doing with COVID right now other than sitting in a cabin
more
and
podcasting.
Let's do more of it. We've got, 3 more hours today we can do?
So many podcasts.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Why was the giraffe there?
I do want to talk about what is the poster you have above your bed. There is a Pam Anderson-esque looking Baywatchy lifeguard poster above Eric's bed, and I thought for sure you would remember who it was. I couldn't tell if it was Pamela Anderson. Okay, there is one. We paused it to write a note about something, and then I was like, so maybe, if you don't pause, I happened to pause right on a shot, and I was like, what is that? What is that poster? I thought maybe you remember.
Saw the random poster over the bed, but missed the showgirl in bright pink in the center of the scene. I love that.
The things listen, if I'm in the scene, you better believe my eyes are only on one thing. Even if it's the back of my head, I am looking at the back of my head.
You can tell you're like, the crimping started an eighth of an inch down, you'll notice.
Exactly. But I'm like, if you notice on the right lower half of my hair.
Exactly.
Meanwhile,
but what about the bear? There was a
in.
bear in that scene? Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so Corey asks his dad if someone ever told him he couldn't be the manager of a supermarket. And Alan says, well, that actually wasn't his dream. But as you get older, your dreams change. And his actual dream was that he wanted to build bridges. And he gave that dream up as his dream of a family came true. And Rusty tells Corey that now his new dream is to be the father of a Phillies center fielder. And this moment kind of made me tear up.
Oh, wow.
Not that long ago, Jensen said, it's just crazy now that I have 2 kids, how much I think about the things I want for myself are not even self-centered anymore. They're not even things that secondary. I want. They're all about trying to make my kids' dreams, like whatever those dreams are, I want to help make those come true. Yeah. And hearing him say that like his dream now is to become the father, it made me tear up. Again, it's one of those things that would have, I guarantee you, was less than a thought in my head at the time that we were taping the show, but now stands out to me as so important to this episode. Yeah. And just overall to the theme of the show. It's just, it made me feel emotional.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I just love that the end of the scene, and this is one of the first times that this has happened in the show, because, usually the end of a scene leaves Corey in conflict, right? The point of the scene is like, now what is Corey going to do? And the end of this scene is Rusty in conflict. With Rusty hearing what Ben said and considering it, and we know that he's going to have to take the action. And that is like a shift in perspective for the show that I thought was really effective and nice. I was like, oh, I'm suddenly really curious. How does Alan Matthews feel about this, and what is he going to do about it? Yeah. And that was cool. I mean, it goes back to what we talked about in this is really the 3rd episode now where there's been a conflict between Feeny and Mr.
Alan.
Matthews.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, it's super. I love it. It's a very fruitful territory to get theme and character out of. It's wonderful.
It also shows the benefits and the necessity of a fully well-rounded education. And that doesn't necessarily just mean the teacher in your school. It also doesn't just mean your parents. It means you're taught from a number of different sources. Yeah. And we love that, where it's Alan kind of going like, I think he even said, I don't care what Feeny says. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Where he's like just going to openly contradict, like, no. He's not, he's your teacher. He's not omniscient. So it's like, he's not right in this situation. Really and these are some of my favorite scenes. I think the Alan and Corey scenes. And these are scenes I didn't remember as much as I remembered the Corey Feeny scenes.
Yeah.
So when I see these Alan Corey scenes, these are incredible scenes between the two of them. They're great. And there are a lot of them. I mean, there are more than I remember too. Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Corey ends the scene on a bit of a bummer note. He says, Dad, it's time to forget about my baseball dreams. You have to wake up and face the facts. And he walks out. And like Ryder said, we then see Alan in conflict. What is he going to do? And then we are downstairs in the living room. Now, I'd like to go back to the beginning of the episode to discuss just really briefly. I knew Stephanie, the friend who was having the birthday party, that she was having a real boring birthday party based on what Lily was wearing to the birthday party. She was in that, like, I guess she could have been having a fancy tea party, like that. Maybe that was for the party. But the way she was dressed, I was like, what 5-year-old kid is having a party where people want to wear tights and fancy shoes and a big puffy dress and the gold necklace? And then it all made sense when the front door opened. And here is Stephanie and her mom, Jane, and they are dressed. Like, what is this? This is like the middle of the day, and they are so fancy pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're also... So here's the problem I had with this. This is now the second time an adult female character has shown up on the show, and they're awful.
Yeah, well,
like we had
the first one was
with
the Mensa.
Yeah, they're with
it's
Jane
a very
Carr,
similar
where it's
scene to
just
the
like,
Mensa
they're
scene.
terrible people. Yes.
Well, I think the point is going back to what we talked about with the Mensa episode, positioning the Matthews as working class, as sort of more real and against the snobbery of, the rich elitists, coastal elitists, call it what you want. But I think it was, it's always important for television shows for the family on a television show to be identifiable, and I think a kind of easy way to make a family identifiable is to bring in the alternative, right? Like bring in somebody who's just patently awful, a terrible family. And I think, showing somebody who's rich and snobby is just a really easy way to do it. It never felt real, right? Like it didn't feel like this person could ever exist. And I think that's, for me, the problem with the scene. Not, I think there might have been a way to make it a little more subtle, a little more, because the once they walk in, what's going to happen. We're just going to play out this joke. I had the same thought. I was like, with the Mensa character, I kind of got it because it's like the snobbery comes from this, like,
it made sense.
But this is like a family that they're friends with, where these people have so much money, and she makes a reference to "I don't have to work," and practically has an English accent.
Exactly.
It's
and
very
not going to give
top.
back the necklace when you've got. I mean, it's like it was so cartoony and ridiculous, and it was like, so every time they're going to bring on an actress who's over the age of 12, they're going to make her awful. Like it was like, yikes.
No, I think I think it's all about just showing how cool Amy is. That's the thing. It was just about making Amy and the Matthews a cool family that you identify with, and you got to give them enemies.
This whole scene to me though was just so sitcom-y, cartoony, over-the-top, terrible kind of. It was a bad scene.
So Jane, the mom, says, listen, I can't give you back the necklace, not because of the value of the necklace, but because of Stephanie's attachment to it. And you can tell that Amy has some sort of plan because she is very relaxed about it. She's like, I wouldn't even think twice about asking. Don't worry about it. And then we are back in the kitchen, and Morgan has made brownies, and she's showing her all of these different things.
Set up.
Yep, exactly. She's setting up the
She's
situation.
Good though. Lily's good though. Lily hits these beats really well
cute.
In the kind of like hold your horses, like all that kind of stuff was great.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is a tough scene, by the way.
The continuity?
This is a very tough scene to direct. I mean, two very young actors talking to each other with no adults, sort of anchoring the scene. So I can imagine this was like something that everybody's off stage holding their breath, like, come on,
and
kid.
Business. You've got to offer this and pull this away and do that.
People don't realize that like this is a nightmare scene for a production.
There is a continuity.
They were wonderful.
A continuity problem in this one. My brain just notices the brownies. The brownies disappear and then go back to the other place, and they're like on the side.
She had the brownies right in front of her, and then she moved them over. It did jump. I was like, ooh, continuity thing, but
brownies. Yeah,
it was so good, and they both held their own. And so we go back out to the living room, and that's when Stephanie is saying she doesn't have to work. And then Morgan and Stephanie come out from the kitchen, and Stephanie has removed her dress. She's just got like a tank top on, and she has a plastic. She's got a plastic tiara on. Her blossom hat has been stolen.
Yes,
and we realize that Morgan has done. Yeah, it's such a blossom hat.
It is a blossom hat. It's a total blossom hat.
So she reveals her ruse that she has done black, no trades back and gotten all the things that she wanted, including the keys to the car. And we get Betsy getting the cute little button on the end, which is, you understand, it's not the value of the car. It's Morgan's attachment to it.
Yeah, followed with the awesomely natural thumbs up they both give each other. Yes. Yes.
Okay, and then so later we see Eric on the phone, and you're having a conversation about a girl, and you were an innocent bystander, and a girl had you pinned up against the lockers, and you were kissing. And then, by the way, your clothes fit perfectly here, Will.
Did you notice that as well?
Yeah.
You saw that too.
You were wearing a well-structured outfit.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Are you joking or are you serious?
No, I'm serious. No bulbous sweaters, nothing. It was
Do you think you said something at this point, or they just started?
No, I would never say anything about clothes. I don't know anything about clothes. But there was one angle at the side where it just looks like I look like a melted candle. Where it's just like I've just melted into the couch and it's just kind of this weird rump. Like I was waiting to just go like, I'm not giving Han Solo back. I caught him fair and square. So it's it was exactly, but it was the thing that struck me was these were always my lines or something along the line. It was always going to be something about girls or something about kissing. When all else fails, something about a girl. And so
then Corey runs in and he grabs the phone from you and hangs up and Eric,
he doesn't actually hang up. He doesn't actually hang up.
He just closes the antenna, and I was like, "Oh, she's still sitting there listening to the whole rest of this scene." Just folds it down.
I have a question. He says, "Call her back," and then Eric says, "Are you kidding? I don't even know who that was."
Yeah.
Which is a joke that sounds like a joke, but I don't get it.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it's structured like a joke.
Exactly.
Is it that you were actually talking to a boyfriend of a girl who caught you kissing his girlfriend? Like, no.
Oh, no. I thought the point
he was talking to another girl.
He was defending himself. It was like there were so many girls after Eric that he doesn't even know which one he was defending himself to.
Well, when you've got that
I think that's the joke.
I mean,
I thought maybe it was a significant other of the girl, and you were like
no,
that person called you and was upset. You were kissing my girl or something. No, okay.
I don't think it was that. It could have been. I don't think it. I think it was words coming out of my mouth-shaped face, and that's all that it was. It was just. Girl, kissing girl. What,
okay.
Jim Abbott? Yeah.
So Corey announces that Yankee pitcher Jim Abbott is in the kitchen. Eric and Corey are shocked, and they literally scream when he comes in. Jim Abbott gets the Rue McClanahan treatment. He walks in, audience goes wild, and he then sits down on the couch and tells Corey a story about how a coach once told him he wouldn't make it in the major leagues, but look at him now. And that coach also told him how important education was and got him to apply to the University of Michigan.
Guy has a lot of dialogue.
A lot of dialogue.
Oh my God.
A lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's all so natural.
Confident and comfortable and relaxed.
He's great. He's great for not being an
this
actor
is a big
and
risk,
for apparently
man.
not knowing that he's going to be on. I mean, it's like, my God, he nailed it.
Yeah,
by the way, it is a very Boy Meets World thing to never even address the fact that he only has one hand.
I think that that's genius. And I think that that's something so important to acknowledge and recognize. That's like a big note for me. Yeah. Because I kept waiting for it to happen. I kept waiting even after the scene. I mean, maybe not to acknowledge it while he's there, but I thought for sure in the tag or in the backyard with Feeny, the next scene, that there would be some reference to Corey saying, and he only has one hand and I can do it. And I was so impressed that it never was mentioned. I thought that was, I feel like a lesser show would have made, it would have hit that on the head. Right.
I think you're right.
Instead it was like, no, we're not even going to need to reference it.
No,
because that's not the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really, really super smart. And there are other times in the show where we either mention or don't mention something that maybe should have been mentioned, and we'll talk about those when they come up. But this is one of those times where I think
they did it right.
It was really done very well that it wasn't even mentioned.
Yep.
And so he mentions that he had a coach who also told him about how important education was. And he says that you, Corey, have a dad who wants his kid to have big dreams. And he can tell that because he was sent 63 telegrams by Alan Matthews.
Telegrams.
Who's sending telegrams?
What even?
Seriously.
I mean, this
Jim
makes
Abbott,
it sound...
stop.
What's
I need you to come talk to
telegram?
Corey. Stop. You need to make sure that he knows what's going on immediately. Stop. You need to make sure he can... It's like, what the hell?
You don't know what a telegram is,
I mean,
Danielle?
I kind of do, but not really. Like, what is the actuality of sending a telegram? Like, what would the process have been to send a telegram?
You would call an operator and they would transcribe a message for you and send it via code, right? Will, am I correct?
Well, I mean, again, it depends on what you're talking. The old school telegram, you literally would go to a Western Union. Right. And they would, with
you would
Morse
write it down,
code, you would write it down, and they would...
You would either write it down or tell it to somebody, and they would transmit it via Morse code.
And there was no punctuation.
Telephone.
So they would say stop after every... That's how you would know what it was. So it would be, Jim Abbott, I'm trying to find you. Stop. I'd like you to come to Philadelphia.
And Will, obviously, you used these in Connecticut.
No, we didn't have this technology. We did not have this at all. We were still smoke signals by the time I left.
Yeah,
Exactly. We were
and
still
bird calls.
Exactly. Well, that's the way we found each other with Tucker. Of course. Yeah.
The messenger pigeons were really great, though.
Clang the dinner bell for everybody in the town. We got to come in, and everybody's yes. No, we didn't have this technology.
But realistically, so Alan, who doesn't know Jim Abbott, you're telling me that in 93, I could have picked up a phone, somehow gotten an operator on the phone, and then said, send this message to this stranger? How does that operator know how to get in touch with that stranger? I don't think that's
how it works. I think it would have been he would have sent it to the Yankees. I mean, it's I don't know how that would have happened, because it would have been...
Can someone explain the internet to me? How are we...
Exactly.
Well,
we're not.
There's this thing called AOL.
Don't start with me. I'm ride or die AOL, my friend. I am ride or die AOL. You're darn right I do.
Oh my gosh.
You're darn right I
do. I believe it functioned kind of like it was like a fax. It predates the fax in the sense that it was a way to get a written message immediately anywhere in the world. And it was still being used for banking and I know that in theater, this is the only real reference I have. There is a tradition of sending a telegram on your opening night. You would get a telegram delivered to your dressing room door, and it was a tradition that people would send telegrams on opening night. You would get one that would say, congrats on opening night, and then it would say, merde was this, which means crap in French.
Yeah.
But it became, that was the tradition for you said that when you got a telegram on opening night. I don't know. That was my experience with telegrams.
Well,
the original,
all of the original phone, quote unquote, phone lines that crisscross the country, those were telegraph lines, because there obviously wasn't a phone at the time. So it was all Morse code that would go from one side to the other. And it was all those old timey that's a telegram. Why he's sending one in 93, let alone 63 of them, to a stranger who then shows up at his home.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, they obviously included the Matthews address. So Rusty makes the joke. Alan makes the joke. What? You only got 63 of them? So he sent significantly more. And then all the kids in the neighborhood show up to get their baseball signed, and Minkus brings the wrong ball. Dusty is in this group. Dusty, our background actor that we have tried. We're still searching for Dusty. This is a great time to remind you, if you are one of our background actors, please get in touch with us. We want to talk to you. You can email us at podmeetsworldshow@gmail.com. So we are in Corey's backyard. He's playing baseball. Well, he's actually just throwing the ball up and catching it. And
that's a light throw for how long it lasts in the air.
Thank you. Right? He throws it up. It's up there and he throws it 1.5 miles. Yep. Somehow in front of him, but it comes to then behind him.
Well, I think it bounces off. I think he's bouncing it off the house.
Is that what he's doing? Okay.
I think so. I don't know. That's my husband is an only child, and that's what he spent at least 80% of his life doing is throwing a ball against a wall and having it come back to him. So when I watched
just
Corey,
see Jensen by himself, just blunk.
Yep, that's literally all he did. So that's what I thought he was doing. The ball gets lost over Feeny's fence. Feeny picks it up, throws it in the trash. Again, so mean, so unnecessary. He says, "When you start respecting my property line, I'll start respecting your property."
Built a bigger fence, Feeny.
I know.
Yeah, seriously.
Man, he can't stand these people. Corey announces to Feeny that he has decided to be a baseball player after all because a friend of his dad's, he doesn't want to drop any names, but it's Jim Abbott, gave him some advice. So now he is going to play baseball, but only after he goes to college. And Feeny then rewards Corey for thinking about the assignment more, and he gives him all of his confiscated balls back by dumping them over the property line.
Yay.
Insert joke here.
Yes. And you're right, Ryder, that there would have been a million opportunities for Corey to have mentioned, and that he only has one hand, and just never mentioned. It was a really smart decision.
Really nice.
And so then
let it be intuitive.
Yeah, I love it. So then we're into the tag. We're in the living room. Amy and Alan are watching TV. It seems like maybe they're watching whatever that version of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette was, some sort of dating show game.
And that's where those voiceovers came in. That you can kind of hear Chris Kyer. You can kind of hear some of the people kind of in the background a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Alan asks if it ever bothered Amy that he didn't become an engineer like he dreamt of. And he says, do you think of me as a failure? And she says he has a great job, respect, 3 beautiful children, and a wife who's ready to make out. And they start kissing on the couch. Corey is videotaping them from behind the couch. He jumps up.
So creepy.
I know, so creepy. So creepy. He asks them to do something interesting because this kissing stuff isn't going to hold the audience's attention. And it quickly becomes a chase scene as Rusty Allen runs him off to bed. And I was...
Very contradictory moment, though. He's like, do something more than this kissing stuff. And then he's like, but give me some action. Like a second later.
That's
I was like,
what
wait,
I mean,
what
it
do
was
you want the kissing?
so
Or you don't?
creepy.
This is weird.
I'm going to come up and videotape my parents, but say, this isn't enough. Let me see some action. It was like, ugh. Wow. I found that really weird. Just like, yikes.
I probably would have spent more time thinking about that if I wasn't so distracted by the awesome crop top Rusty was wearing.
Was he really?
What?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
When he goes running up the stairs, you can see his entire lower back. He's wearing like a cut off Henley, like a waffle Henley that was cut. And it's kind of crop toppy. And again, just one of those choices they made that where they're just the cool parents, you know?
Yeah.
Well, they also had to take the time to digitize out Rusty's lower back tattoo. You know, a lot of people don't know that about him, is he has one of those lower back kind of tattoos for years.
Yeah, he's got a
like there was anything digital yet, by the way.
Exactly.
You couldn't digitize anything. You'd have to optically erase.
Exactly. So it's a lot of people don't know that about Rusty.
Yeah, he's got a fairy tattoo on his lower back.
Exactly.
It's really cute. So we got a letter in our email box about this episode, and I wanted to close out by reading you this letter. It is from
it a telegram?
It was a telegram. It's Morse code, so it'll give me a few minutes to figure it out. And he says, "Hi, thank you so much for doing this podcast. I just wanted to let you know that as a 10-year-old boy, the Jim Abbott episode sealed the deal for this being my favorite show ever. I was born with amniotic band syndrome, which for me means that only 2 of my fingers are fully grown and the rest only grew to 1 or 2 joints. When I wanted to play Little League Baseball as a kid in the early 90s, I had to figure out how to throw and catch with the same hand, because only one of my hands is capable of closing a baseball glove and also throwing a baseball. Jim Abbott had pioneered this technique of throwing and catching with the same hand, and I copied it so that I could play baseball." Wow. Needless to say, Jim Abbott was my hero and favorite baseball player, and I even met him once when he was doing a motivational tour of some kind in the 90s. Boy Meets World was already my favorite show in the fall of 1993 because, like Corey, I was constantly anxious about whether I was cool or not. And, like Corey, I have very curly hair, which did not lend itself to the cuts that most of my friends had. Then Jim Abbott, my hero, showed up, and I remember screaming to my family, "Jim Abbott is on Boy Meets World!" and watching the rest of the episode in complete shock and admiration.
It's like our entire show was made for him. That's so cool.
Awesome.
Oh,
I was a super fan from then on. I'm sure you've heard so many layers of why people love the show, which are true for me too, but I thought you might like to hear my Jim Abbott angle. His disability isn't mentioned in the episode, but it was just incredible to me to see him as an inspirational person to Corey after he had been such an inspiration to me too. Anyway, the show was amazing. Its relax and be yourself message has been a lifelong lesson for me.
Wow, that's really cool.
Isn't that great?
so great.
Wow.
So anyway, thank you for that letter. That was really wonderful. Like Ryder said, it
Amazing.
seems as though this entire episode was just for you.
Yeah.
That's so great.
So thank you guys for being here with us for this episode of Pod Meets World. Make sure you follow us on Pod Meets World Show on Instagram. And you can also follow me on TikTok. I'm the only one of the 3 of us that has a TikTok. It's Danielle Fishel 8. And the only reason I'm promoting the TikTok is because we have been doing some really fun little TikTok-based games, and we may do some giveaways there at some point, and we've been doing some fun mashups, and so there's kind of some special content you can't necessarily get anywhere else, but you can get on our TikTok. And our next episode that we will be recapping is Season 1, Episode 10, Santa's Little Helper. It aired on December 10th, 1993, so make sure you join us for that. Be sure to subscribe to the pod, and you can buy our merch on podmeetsworldshow.com. Thank you for joining us.
We love you all. Pod dismissed.
Pod Meets World is an iHeart podcast produced and hosted by Danielle Fishel, Will Friedle, and Ryder Strong. Executive producers Jensen Karp and Amy Sugarman. Executive in charge of production Danielle Romo. Producer and editor Tara Sudbaksh. Producer Lorraine Viruez. Engineer and Boy Meets World superfan Easton Allen. Our theme song is by Kyle Morton of Typhoon. Follow us on Instagram at Pod Meets World Show or email us at podmeetsworldshow@gmail.com.